Hi, everyone. My name is Yogesh Chavda. I'm one of the co founders of SAMI. And today I have Pavi Gupta, who's on the board here with me as well. Pavi, tell me who you are, and let's get into the conversation about Davos and the World Economic Forum. So tell me who you are first.
Hey Yogesh, thank you for having me here. Yeah, I've been in the industry insights analytics close to 30 years now, but have had the fortune of working with amazing companies like Coca-Cola, Johnson and Johnson, SC Johnson, and I'm now looking to start up on my own. So the last few months, I've been busy cooking up some ideas and trying to see if they're going to resonate in the market.
Fantastic. So, Pavi, you had the opportunity to go to Davos for the World Economic Forum. So, I'd love to have you first tell us what is that, why is it so important, and then we can get into the conversation around that.
Yeah, so it's usually you go to these kind of events, you want to stand on top of rooftops and shout about it, right?
Yeah.
But this was one where I wasn't like, I mean, yes, I did go to Davos and I did go during the World Economic Forum, but my engagement was really with the Insights Lighthouse, which is a very unique client side initiative to create an insights forum, a forum or a network or a community of
Mm.
people who are passionate about insights and who are looking at what's happening in the world and want to come and talk about it and co-create or curate those issues together. um, we did the Insights Lighthouse, and I'm wearing this hat from Insights Lighthouse today. I thought this was good theme with the Davos and the cold deep freeze we are here as well in Chicago. So um, we did go to the CES as well, where Insights Lighthouse has set up a similar kind of a event, showcase, and that was over a 4-day period, and we had great success in terms of engagement. We had more than 150 leaders across the industries come with us and spend 4 days where the content was outstanding. So I'm a global brand ambassador to Insights Lighthouse, and so it's a volunteer effort on my side, my part, because I really believe in the purpose of what we're trying to do here is to build a community of insights professionals together.
Mhm.
And I was very fortunate to be invited by Dr. Lubov, who is the founder, or I call it like the force behind Insights Lighthouse. And so she invited me to the Davos Insights Lighthouse event, which is their flagship event because this was the third year of doing it. So that's where they started 3 years ago or 2 years ago, but this is the third round that they did. So obviously, you always hear about Davos, you always hear about World Economic Forum. So there's a huge amount of curiosity about what's going on and how can we be part of it.
Mhm.
It was a huge learning experience for me. Frankly, amongst the two of us, I did not know what to expect going into something like this. And now that I have been there once, I have better clarity on what to expect as if I was to go again, right? And I also have better clarity on how I could optimize my time better because going first time, you don't know the lay of the land. There is obviously the event that you're going for, and you are fully committed to that, but you're not thinking around the peripheries of that event to say how can you optimize your time either before or after or even during the breaks that the event is going on. So those are things that I learned to kind of I think I can get better at. But this time my sole focus was on the Insights Lighthouse forum that was created, and I
Mhm.
spent a day and a half interacting with industry leaders, both mostly from the client side as well as some from the agency world, a few startups. And then interestingly, on the client side, it's not just people who are working in insights, but it's actually a very good reflection of across different functional areas. There were people from the chief dental officer of Colgate Palmolive was there,
Mhm.
one of the former vice chairs of Colgate Palmolive, who's a business leader, a CEO, kind of position. So there were all kinds of leaders over there who came from all walks of life. I will say that one thing that was consistent is everyone were fans of this function and this community of insight. So that was the common, consistent purpose that bound us together.
Mm-hmm.
um, of course, there were a lot of other events going on over there. You have a lot of commercial organizations who take space and set up, these kind of areas where, and they have speakers come through. They have a lot of discussions, and of course, you've got heads of state and you've got NGOs. So there's like it's kind of a melting pot of not just the business interest, but also the political kind of landscape and the economic landscape. So all of this kind of comes together. As I said, I did try to register to some of these events, but I think I was too late in my ground game on that.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, you do pick up as you talk to the people who are there, and as you kind of interact. And a lot of the business leaders who attended Insights Lighthouse actually were not there purely for that. Like either they had come to us and they were going somewhere else, or they had come somewhere else, but they also stopped by and spent time with us. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a drift or lay of the land of how the conversations were going.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about that. What did you hear? Like, what were the two or three big themes that you picked up from the conversations that were happening, either through Insights Lighthouse or even through the conversations that you were having one on one with people, during the breaks and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think, and I saw a continuation from what the discussions and the tone of the discussions was at CES, because World Economic Forum happened just a week, just within a week and a half after that, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So the continuation is obviously AI is everywhere, right? So every conversation, every piece now, but now people are not talking about the wonders of AI, that which is what we realized even in CES, because it's become like everybody's internalized the wonders of AI. Now it's more on the adoption of AI and what's stopping us and what can make us better. And this re-emergence or kind of that reinforcement of the entire piece of the human piece becoming even more relevant as
Mm-hmm.
technology pushes the boundaries is
Mm-hmm.
the consistent theme that I could pick, from the conversations from CES, all the way to World Economic Forum as well. So, the former vice chair of Colgate Palmolive, Prabha Parmeshwaran, she did a keynote address, and she talked about the perspective of the technological evolution is very rapid and very fast. It's an exponential curve.
Yeah.
The change in terms of how the entire landscape plays out as far as adoption of this is concerned, and how humans are or organizations are adopting and using that, isn't at the same exponential pace as the technology. So she calls this kind of this divide or this gap over there, and she called that out. And that was very, very relevant, because what happens is the more people are able to understand what's going on, the more they are able to then make sense out of this, and think about how will you how can you, instead of kind of getting left behind, how can you actually catch up and then go in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you and I have talked a lot about this, and I hosted a master class at CES as well, where I talked about, like, it's not just about AI will make us better, but it's also the aspect about we can make AI better. And I put it in the theme of insights. Like, yes, AI can make insights better. We can do faster, smarter, and cheaper. However, whatever we are doing, that can be a very efficient, well oiled machinery and very effective in doing what we are doing. But
Yeah.
likewise, insights can also actually shape and help what AI can do. And maybe this is what can narrow that gap a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that was one big theme around AI and the adoption conversation, because I think if I was to hearing you speak right now, it feels like the conversation at Davos was about adoption. This conversation at CES was about the integration of AI into solutions, and the technology, that's coming out with AI incorporated into their product, or whatever the case may be, right? So, once more about the tech side, this is more about the economic, human side. I feel that's the distinction I'm kind of like drawing from what you're saying right now. Am
Yeah,
I kind of like
yeah.
capturing it correctly?
Yeah, I think you're reading that correctly. Again, it's not like nobody was talking about AI adoption as an issue. Like it wasn't as if we were talking about,
Yeah,
oh, we've got these solutions, adoption's not happening. That's not what the
that's what the
theme
conversation.
was.
Great. Yeah.
The theme was more in terms of how do we become even more human? What are the human values which make us unique and
Hmm.
are actually going to become superpowers for where we can go with, with AI, right?
Understood.
So
Yeah.
the trust factor, the judgment factor, the human
Mhm.
empathy, you
Yeah.
know, like I have deep passion for the curiosity piece of
Yeah.
human beings. So those are the kind of strings of thoughts or strands, that people were talking about across,
Hmm.
all the dimensions, at least in all the conversations we were having in the lighthouse. And then as I was keeping an eye on some of the other conversations going on, while I wasn't part of those conversations themselves, but as I was keeping my ear close to the ground, it seemed that it was similar kind of themes that were coming across, or similar strands of, thoughts that were going on there as well.
Amazing, amazing. So that was one big area. Were there any other areas that were also kind of like being talked about, or either on stage or behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think, there was, again, as a South Asian, there were a couple of sessions which were fascinating, which somewhere I think we used to talk about that a lot maybe 5 years ago in the business landscape, but somewhere along the journey the entire emphasis, or the reemergence of east and the growth coming from the east, and how the technology evolution or the digitization in the east is has been at a different pace versus what's happened in the west. And now the fact that, because the eastern countries, whether it is China or India, as two bigger countries in terms of new growth coming from, or established kind of developed economies of Japan and Korea, like the entire piece around the the flavor of what east brings, to whether it is
Hmm.
um, corporate branding, or kind of decision making, or understanding consumers needs and coming up with different solutions, and or like that, the ecosystem that is being created over there, so it's I thought there was some interesting conversations in that space as well, which were very thought provoking,
Hmm.
and they resonated a lot with the audience as well.
Right. So in that, was it? So you mentioned a few things. So I'm just wondering if you can unpack that a little bit more. So you know, it feels like that what's happening right now in East Asia and South Asia is almost ahead of the curve than what you're seeing in the Western countries. Is that a fair statement to make, or
um,
is that,
I
or
think
is it
it's a,
is it
yeah.
is it vary?
Yeah, I think definitely in the digital transformation piece.
Yeah.
Now, you could argue in the AI, because kind of pre-Gen AI, I think the digital transformation in terms of how the ecosystem was evolving
Hmm.
from, from earlier, oh, my website is mobile friendly, to now my website is mobile first, to actually, I've now got social communities and we sell through, kind of our commerce is, mobile or digital first, right? That is
Yeah.
kind of evolution that was going on pre the Gen AI era. Now that the Gen AI era has come, it feels like the Western, um, shaping of what's going on, because some of the biggest organizations or companies or the biggest investments that are being made in AI are being made in the West, specifically in the US. So that feels, so I think there is some good, healthy tension over there. What does that mean? Because if you look at the scale of the transformation from a digitization perspective, I would argue saying, markets like China and India are probably ahead. If you just look at the number of transactions that happen in the digital space, just the ecosystem of even the, whether it's kind of the entire ecosystem of payments to and or social commerce, that never, like, it was still emerging as a theme in the US or the Western world, right? So it hadn't fully kind of gone there. But I think with AI coming in, that could be kind of a moment where it feels that, some of the early investment is happening more in this part of the world, and or
Yeah.
at least a heavier investment is happening. What's that going to do? Is the US going to continue to go the digital route, or will it completely leapfrog to an AI route? And I know you talk a lot about agentic commerce and all of that, and then that becomes a way, like, I don't have answers on that,
No,
but we
nobody
can
does.
speculate in terms of where that could go. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so there's the east-west, divide again in a way with this time because of AI. Anything else that you were picking up besides that, or those are like the two big dominant themes for you?
Those were the two main. See, also what happens in Davos is also, it's also a very, it's also about the political landscape and what's going on. And you know again, there's been a lot of movement, or a lot of conversations around how some of the recent political events have unfolded. And I'm talking about geopolitical, I'm not talking about within a country, but you
Yeah.
know we're all aware of how the situation continues to unfold in Venezuela, or the entire situation with Greenland, or of course you already have a couple of strife points, whether it's Ukraine or the Middle East. So I think that's the other, like, that wasn't part of the conversations that we were having in the Insights Lighthouse, but I think that's the other environment that is there broadly, because when you
Mhm.
have like 60 heads of states, right from the world's biggest economy to maybe even like middling economies there, and then a lot of statements are made, or and then everybody is trying to read between the lines on, oh, they said this, so this is what they mean, and this is where this will go. So
Mhm.
as a ripple effect of that, I could feel that and sense it being in Davos,
Mhm.
because typically in business meetings and conversations, you don't get into that much of, geopolitical conversations, right? You know that the geopolitical landscape plays a massive role in how your business performance is going to unfold, or how it is unfolding, or what the future lies. But
Yeah.
you don't actively discuss about it in such a big way, because I also feel like business leaders are very mature about it and say, like, what's the point discussing about something that you can't control, or how it's unfolding, right? But
Mhm.
that felt different to me in Davos. People were very, and I think that's kind of the environment that's around there, or a lot of you know ripples around us. So
Yeah.
it was very easy to be in the middle of a conversation which could, you needed to be careful about, that could very quickly become polarizing. Luckily that didn't happen, but there
Yeah.
were a lot of passionate conversations happening about how the geopolitical
Mhm.
situation was
Mhm.
continuing to evolve or unfold. Because I
Yeah.
think the basic theme, and again, this is, I'm not taking any sides in terms of who's doing what, but the basic theme of that having an even greater impact
Mhm.
is the fact. That's a fact. So I'm reporting on the facts that it's going to have an even deeper impact on the business.
Understand.
So people were talking about those things as well.
So, I'm going to put you a bit on the spot here, and I am kind of asking for an opinion right now, not from a geopolitical perspective, but as you were, you come back from Davos, it takes a while to also self-reflect on what you saw and heard, and kind of like distill it down to, like, how you just did that beautifully around the AI and the East-West divide and the geopolitical, conversations that are happening. As you think about Sami and the South Asian diaspora that's living outside of South Asia and some are obviously within those markets as well, you know and since we're a marketing community at the end of the day for the most part, right? As you kind of like reflect and say, what would be the one or two you know pieces of uh, I'm going to use the word advice, but it's really more about like signals that you would want people to be thinking about coming out of what you saw and heard.
Yeah, I think. and again, I feel like this is something for everyone, and even more to some extent to the South Asian community, because typically, we are not known for, we already have so much diversity amongst,
Yeah,
from where we come. So we always feel we already are very diverse, so we really understand everything. But no
yeah,
matter how much you understand, there is still much more left for you to understand. So
yeah,
it was that moment for me to say, continue to be curious, continue to have an open mind. And you cannot, it's like when my son goes to college, I always remind him, like, situational awareness. If you're walking on the street, don't be distracted, you're on your phone, just be aware of what's going around you. And I think the same theme applies to all of us, like, keep that situational awareness of, and keep a very open aperture and learning, be like a sponge, and take in and try to understand and be curious about, ooh, what's going on here, and why did this happen, or what could potentially happen. So the more we do that,
yeah.
the more we will be able to anticipate what might happen next, and the
Hmm.
more we will be able to therefore be ready for that. So I
Hmm.
think, and again, I don't think this is different than what, let's say our parents were telling us, like, this is a age old kind of, it's, you'll be like, oh, you're giving the same advice somebody is always giving. But I think it's even more relevant. And
Hmm.
I draw that analog or the parallel to the AI part of it, is like, okay, double down on being human, right? Because AI is coming in, and look at the skills that you have as a human, whether it is the ability to, make decisions or judgment, or whether it's the empathy, or whether it's curiosity. Double down, those are your strengths. So just like that, I would say, even on this piece, like, because there is so much, I want to use the word volatility. Again, I'm not using it in a negative way, but what I mean is so much movement in
Hmm.
what's going on.
Yeah.
uh, this means that it's even more important to have a wider aperture to try to make sense of what's going on.
Hmm.
And to do that, you have to be curious to understand what's going on. So the more open you are, the more you'll try to make sense out of it, connect the dots, the more you will be able to anticipate. And then the more you'll be able to anticipate, the more prepared you're going to be for future.
That's amazing. So, I totally get the fact, because you're right. We're not in a mature steady state environment anymore. We are in a series of disruption and flux, and it's going to take a long time before we get to some form of steady state, and I don't know how long that's going to be, whether it's even going to be in our lifetimes for that matter. We don't know, right? So to be able to anticipate, to be curious, makes a lot of sense. But even to anticipate, it's hard to anticipate when there's so many different moving parts at the same time. It's kind of like mind numbing. So for our community, I'm just wondering whether if you were to boil it down to maybe one or two things. Curiosity, got it. Would you say creativity and problem solving, is that another one that you would also say is going to be even more important now as a human in this
Yes.
new world that we're in?
Yes. And one thing which I would say, which should come
Yeah,
even before that, is the ability to reflect. And I feel like, because we are so much in the motion and so much in the doing, that
yeah,
sometimes we're not taking the time out to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And so the more curiosity we have, the little bit more intentional reflection that we do,
yeah,
the greater our judgment and our capabilities to, like, connect the dots and get that piece will be.
yeah. So as marketeers, especially with our backgrounds, we got to be kind of like making this front and center for us as we move forward. Basically, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Any last pieces of advice, Pavi, before we end the show?
No, I think, I think, like, Sami is an excellent forum, and I'm sure there are many others. Like, just leverage these kind of networks, or these informal and formal opportunities to connect with people from different, aspects of life. And whether you don't need to be exactly in the same geography or in the same company, because typically this is what happens, is, we end up, spending more time with people that we know, and
Yeah.
who are probably thinking like us or whatever. It's like, just keep that open mind and continue to explore, and you'll learn more and you'll get better at whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Pavi, thank you so much for your time. And, I'm so glad you had the opportunity to go to Davos. and to share and reflect, your insights from here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.